Welcome to Crawford County Master Gardener Virtual 2020 Fair program. Today I'm here to talk about Master Gardeners. We have two other presentations on the fair. The chair is with us today to talk about the fair and some history. And then we have our theme that we're going to tease you with, and Julie Harris is going to talk about Victory Gardens. First, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Kenora Tigri. I'm the new coordinator and master gardener. And if you're like me, you have a passion for gardening. And if you have a passion for gardening, working with the public and teaching, this program could be good for you. We start in October, and the classes will be every Thursday night from 6 to 8:45. The thing of it is, because of COVID-19 this year, we are doing it all virtual via Zoom. And then after class is done, the live Zoom is done, we will then go to our county Zoom room and we get to know each other. We can answer questions, we can discuss the class and everything. So if you're interested, please call me and we'll get you signed up. Nice thing about it, with winter weather, you don't have to travel in that snow and ice if you're coming from a distance. So this will be a good thing, and we'd love to have you because we have plenty of projects. You get your hours by participating in DeArmond Gardens, Conneaut Lake Community Gardens, Ag Literacy, the hotline, and we have that great big giant plant sale that you can help with. We have workshops, and we have plenty of other projects that you can get involved with. It could be as simple as research and writing an article. But once you get your 50 hours for your first year, you only need 20 hours of volunteer time. And then after that, you also need your 10 hours of continuing education to satisfy. And the fiscal year runs from October 1st to September 31st. So we've got all the seasons to cover, and I hope you can join us. Thank you and have a great day, and see you at the fair next year.
Hello everyone, my name is Ron Manano, and I'm a Penn State Crawford County Master Gardener, and I'm also chairperson of the Fair Display Committee. So it's our job to put up a display at the fair every year. In the past, we've had numerous themes, and one of the themes that we were really considering, because this is the 75th anniversary of the fair, is that we take a look at Victory Gardens and use that as our theme. So let me back up a little bit more. What I want to do then is I want to talk to you about the fair display and also about the committee. We were first in this area of Home Show Building 2 probably in 1993. That was our first year of putting up a display. And from year to year we've done different themes, and we've also had improvements that we've done to this display area. Themes in the past have been things such as container gardening, bringing outdoor plants in to overwinter them, pollinators, invasive species, native plants, children's gardens, just a host of different themes or topics for our display. Again, this area is about 20 by 10 feet, and we've expanded. Initially, we were just one booth, so we expanded into this area, which is actually then a second booth. We improved the area by adding skylights and also fencing on the sides and paneling in the back so that we could display our plants more appropriately and also bring in some natural sunlight for our show and also for the plants themselves. The committee generally meets starting in January, so we did meet January this year. And I'll tell you a little bit about what should happen, and then literally this year what happened. So in January, my group got together. We're probably 12 or 15 people on the Fair Display Committee, and the first thing that we would do would be to think through a little bit about the theme or the topic of our display. And one person raised the question, what was happening back in the United States and Crawford County, 75 years ago, since we're talking about the 75th anniversary of the fair. So the fair began probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 1994, 1995. Excuse me, 1944, 1945. And at that time, the United States was at war, and people were trying to do whatever they could for the war effort. So people were putting in victory gardens. And something like 40% of the produce that was grown during that period of time actually came from victory gardens. And then there was something like 20 million victory gardens that were put in during the war years. So the committee unanimously decided that they were going to do victory gardens. And then the next thing that we would do would be to take certain aspects of the victory garden, and people would do research on those different topics pertaining to the theme. So we looked at, what did they plant, how big were these gardens, what herbs were planted, what perennials were planted, what annuals were planted, how did they control pests, what implements did they use, how did they save seeds for the next growing season, what did they do with the veggies, the vegetables and that they produced, what recipes did they use, and also how did children, what role did they play in establishing a victory garden. So again, it was a family activity, and basically, everybody got involved, in the gardening process, including the children. Fast forward to the year 2020, this year. So as a result of the pandemic, we have seen an uptick as people were doing their research in victory gardens of World War II, and also gardening in general. And taking a look at what was happening and why people were so interested in gardening, what you would find is that people were just tired of being cooped up for weeks and weeks at a time at home, kind of hesitant about going into town to buy whatever groceries, produce, looking at shortages in some things. So I think a lot of the idea comes from what can we do on our own to be a little bit more self-sufficient, and also an activity that would bring us into into the outside so that we're with nature, and also something that the family could do as a whole. So there was a role for children, and again, they could have been involved with the initial planting of the garden, planting the seeds, tending the plants, watering them, weeding, picking the fruit, the vegetables, whatever, and then learning how to take the excess and possibly learn how to can or how to freeze some of these vegetables. And then of course looking at how to preserve seeds for the next growing year. So in the course of events, if this had been a normal year that we had put on fair display, we would then have people choose projects to do pertaining to the theme, the Master Gardeners choosing projects, and then some of those projects would be done in containers, or other projects might have been a visual summary to put up a display of their research. And then those things would go into our display here. So we've got as far as the projects being assigned to different people, and then we got word that we could not meet as a group, that we had to do things through virtual viewing, and therefore we were doing Zoom for a couple months, and then finally we ended up finding out that the fair had been canceled. So if everything had gone smoothly, we would have had our fair display put up the Thursday before the fair itself, and then we would basically have people monitoring the fair display during the fair week. So normally people were there at 9 or 10 in the morning, and then we would continue to monitor through about 9 or 10 at night. So again, the people coming in, if they had questions, they could ask the people that were monitoring the display. If we did not know an answer, we could look it up and then get back to them. Normally Tuesday of the fair week, we would then have a guest speaker that would talk in terms of, what the theme was, or in particular, a particular aspect of the theme. And for this year, and again, because there is no fair, that person will come back next year, and she'll talk about preserving seeds. Finally, the Sunday after the fair, we take everything down. So that would have been the normal progression of things. Again, finding that the fair had been postponed this year, that there wouldn't have been a fair August of 2020, we decided as a group to continue with that same theme for next year in 2021. So hopefully, there'll be a fair, and that everything that we've gone through this year, would be history, and we can proceed, with putting up our display as we normally would. I want to thank the Armstrong Cable Company and also other members of that are involved in the fair to put this on for your time, and I hope that we can see you next year in August. Thank you.
Sure looks good. Gardening has always been important in our lives. Whether you or your family planted a garden, or neighbors had a garden, or you enjoy fresh vegetables at a farmer's market, we can all relate to gardens. In the past and now, we still enjoy the fresh taste of homegrown vegetables. The Master Gardener's Fair Booth theme for next year will be Victory Gardens. When the Crawford County Fair began 75 years ago in 1945, many families planted victory gardens at both private residences and on public land during World War II. Raising vegetables reduced the pressure on the food supply and was a very beneficial war effort to help prevent food shortages. In fact, there were 20 million garden plots in the mid-40s. That's astounding. 8 million tons of fruits and vegetables were produced locally, and 40% of that was used in the U.S. For a little perspective, 1 million ton of food is equivalent to 17,000 Army tanks. The commercial farmers back in World War II were working hard to feed the troops overseas. Canned fruits and vegetables were rationed starting in 1943. So civilians were encouraged to grow their own produce to supplement their rations. The use of fewer canned goods would decrease the use of precious tin and reduce the strain on the heavily taxed rail and road systems. Many garden tools were made of steel, which was in short supply, so sharing between families were encouraged and necessary. On our farm, I remember the sharing of hand garden tools and field tools, which was a constant practice. Planting victory gardens, also called gardens for defense or war gardens, helped make sure there was enough food for our soldiers fighting around the world. Pamphlets provided sample planting, schedules, and garden plans to show the newcomer how to grow enough food to feed their family for a year without wasting seed or food. These pamphlets described how to choose the garden site, prepare the soil, fertilize, plant properly, water, weed, and harvest. The Department of Agriculture and the War Production Board prepared a special Victory Garden fertilizer for home use. Colorful rows of annual zinnias were planted at the garden's edge. These were heirloom seeds that were planted and gathered at each harvest. These flowers provided color and nectar for the pollinators such as bees and other insects. People of all ages rolled up their sleeves, put on their garden gloves, and an outside bandana. The garden hat, grabbed a spade and a hoe, seeds to plant, and of course, their garden boots, getting ready to plant the garden. Like to come with me? The posters on the wall emphasize a victory garden. Of course I can. I'm patriotic as can be, and ration points won't worry me. War gardens for victory. Grow vitamins at your kitchen door. The entire family and community members worked together. Communities got together and grew what was needed and often traded with each other. Each person was trying to do their part to bring about a swift victory. Children planted gardens at school and even today. Children are encouraged to begin to raise vegetables in a garden bed in science classes. Eleanor Roosevelt even planted a victory garden on the White House lawn. These victory gardens boosted morale and expressed patriotism. I will offer a few guidelines to get your creative vegetable juices flowing. So, garden guidelines. Number 1, determine the size of your plot. To feed a family of 4, you would need a 20 by 40 foot garden bed. But you can go with a much smaller scale of garden. Today, container gardening is also very practical and productive. Number 2, prepare the soil. Breaking up the sod using a tiller or hand hoe, like this one I used on our farm as a child, will prepare the soil for planting. You may add some natural fertilizers to your soil and even begin a compost pile to put on your garden. Number 3, select your plants and seeds. The plot size will help you with the choices and various vegetable preferences within your family. Children may acquire new vegetable tastes by trying something new. Here are some very common vegetables grown in the early victory gardens and in today gardens. We have beans, beets, cabbage, carrots, kale, Swiss chard, kohlrabi, lettuce, peas, tomatoes, squash, and herbs. Number 4, tend to your garden. As a family or an individual, you will have to weed and water your garden. Assigning various guardian jobs develop responsibility and a sense of pride. Number 5, enjoy your harvest. Families were encouraged to eat fresh vegetables from the garden and can some of the bountiful harvests, such as these green beans and whole tomatoes, to be enjoyed in the winter months. As we look back at the concept of victory gardens, we can also focus on today and the need for fresh vegetables. Whatever motivates you to raise vegetables, together we can support one another with gardening experiences and research. As we navigate these uncertain times through this pandemic that leaves no one untouched, I think we can all agree it is time to raise our spades and once again do what we can to get through this together. It will be exciting to discuss our victory gardens next year at the fair. Stay safe, be well, and start sowing those seeds of victory. And now, I'll enjoy this homegrown tomato. Thank you.